He was forged from midnight and consequence, the kind of man who turned shipping containers into empires and enemies into memories. Min Jae Kang, 38 years old, 6 feet of controlled violence wrapped in Italian wool. The Shadow King of Seoul's underworld, controlling shipping ports like chess pieces, real estate like breathing, political strings like a puppeteer who never showed his face in daylight. His penthouse overlooked the Han River from a height that made other men dizzy, but Min Jae had been living at altitude since he was 26, the year his father died under circumstances the police called unclear and everyone else called inevitable. Ice had veins, Min Jae had calculations. Then there was his sister, Ji-won Kang, 29 years old, sculpted by privilege and polished by resentment. She wore their family name like a crown, Cartier dripping from her wrists, Hermes hanging from her shoulders, contempt glittering in her eyes whenever she looked at anything she considered beneath her station, which was most things, most people, especially the women her brother brought to family dinners. And then there was Zara Okonkwo, the Nigerian woman with a gallery-soft voice and department store dresses, holding Min Jae's hand at Sunday dinners, smiling through Ji-won's barbed comments about exotic tastes and temporary entertainment. She worked at a modest art gallery in Itaewon, took the subway, spoke Korean with a charming accent that made old women at the market want to feed her. She seemed grateful, accommodating, ordinary. She was a lot of things. Ordinary wasn't one of them. On a Sunday afternoon in the Kang family's private dining room, marble floors that cost more than most Seoul apartments, windows overlooking gardens that hid security posts, Ji-won called Zara a gold digger. The words hung in the air like smoke before a fire. Min Jae's response came cold and surgical. She's worth $200 million. You're broke.
The room stopped breathing. What Ji-won didn't know could fill a vault. What Zara had been hiding could buy one. What happened next would be retold in Seoul's underground circles for years. The Sunday when a princess learned she'd been bullying a queen. When a mafia boss discovered the woman he loved was more dangerous than he'd ever been. When 2 empires collided over dinner and decided to build something new from the wreckage. This isn't just a love story. This is what happens when you underestimate the wrong woman. How does a mafia boss's pampered sister make the worst mistake of her life in less than 60 seconds? Let me show you. The Kang family compound sat in Seongbukdong like a secret carved into the hillside. Traditional Hanok architecture on the outside, curved tile roofs, wooden beams, the aesthetic of old Korean nobility. But step inside and you'd find reinforced steel, bulletproof glass disguised as traditional paper screens, and security systems that would make embassy staff jealous. Every room had 2 exits. Every exit had armed guards who'd been with the family for decades, who knew which threats to eliminate and which to simply observe. Sunday dinners happened in the western wing. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked manicured gardens where cherry trees bloomed in spring and security personnel patrolled year-round. The dining table was 12 feet of polished walnut, imported from somewhere Ji-won had visited once and talked about constantly. Fresh flowers, always white, always expensive, sat in crystal vases that caught the afternoon light and threw prismatic patterns across walls the color of cream and power. This was where the Kang family performed civilization. Min Jae ran the empire from here, his office 3 doors down, his bedroom on the floor above.
He'd taken over at 26 when their father suffered a sudden heart attack that the autopsy called natural causes and everyone else called convenient timing.
The transition had been smooth because Min-jae had been preparing for years, watching, learning, building his own network of loyalty that ran deeper than fear. He was everything his father had been, minus the cruelty. That's what people said, anyway. His father had built the empire on pain. Min-jae maintained it through precision. He had 3 underbosses. Kyung-soo handled port operations, Dong-men managed the protection networks, and Young-jae controlled their legitimate business fronts. Hotels, restaurants, entertainment venues that washed money cleaner than bleach. They were loyal because Min-jae paid well, promoted merit, and never made promises he couldn't keep. Then there was Ji-won. She managed the legitimate side officially, a luxury hotel chain, entertainment company investments, art acquisitions that made their illegal money look like cultured wealth. But her real role was social intelligence. She networked at galas, married into a vice minister's family, collected gossip like currency, and maintained the Kang family's reputation in circles where criminal ties were ignored as long as you had the right pedigree and donated to the right charities. She'd been doing this since she was 17. Their mother died when Ji-won was 12, cancer that their father had prolonged through aggressive treatment, not because he loved his wife, but because he hadn't finished setting up alternative supply routes through her family's connections. When she finally passed, relief and resentment braided together in Ji-won's throat. She became the lady of the house by default, managing household staff, hosting dinners, learning to smile while calculating every person's utility. Min-jae had raised her as much as protected her, which made what happened next hurt worse than any business betrayal. The rules in the Kang family were simple. Loyalty was religion. Outsiders were investigated, tested, kept at arm's length for years.
Romantic partners especially. Scrutinized, background checked, evaluated for risk. No one married into the Kang family with unanimous approval. Ji-won had veto power. She'd used it twice before on Min-jae's previous relationships. A prosecutor's daughter. Too dangerous. Access to legal systems they needed to avoid. A Japanese hotel heiress. Too many connections to Yakuza rivals. Both women disappeared from Min-jae's life after Ji-won made her case. He'd never argued. Until Zara. Zara Okonkwo had been in Min-jae's life for 8 months. They'd met at a charity auction where she was cataloging pieces for a small Itaewon gallery, speaking about Joseon-era pottery with the kind of passion that made Min-jae stop mid-conversation with a real estate developer and just listen. She wore a simple black dress, minimal jewelry, and didn't recognize him, or pretended not to. When he mentioned his import business, she'd smiled and said, "Everyone in Seoul imports something. What makes yours interesting?" He'd laughed. Min-jae Kang didn't laugh often. She lived in a modest Itaewon villa, took the subway to work, wore elegant but clearly affordable clothes, worked long hours at the gallery, and sent money home to family in Lagos every month. His people ran background checks, valid visa, clean record, typical immigrant artist story. Nothing alarming, nothing impressive, just ordinary, which is exactly what Zara Okonkwo needed them to think. For 8 months, she'd been a curiosity, then a tolerance, then an irritation that Ji-won couldn't scratch away. The Sunday dinners became battlegrounds disguised as hospitality. Each week, Ji-won sharpened her knives a little more. Comments about Zara's accent, questions about her family's business in Nigeria, suggestions about cultural differences that were really suggestions about inadequacy. Min-jae noticed but said nothing. He'd learned his sister's moods passed like summer storms.
What he didn't know, this Sunday, Ji-won had decided to end the charade permanently. What Ji-won didn't know, charades were Zara's specialty. Everything changed the moment Ji-won's husband poured the champagne. Sunday dinner, week 34. Ji-won arrived in a cloud of Chanel No. 5 and vindication,
her husband trailing behind like an expensive accessory. Vice minister's son, pretty face, political connections, absolute loyalty to whoever held power in the room. Today, he thought that was his wife. He'd learn differently soon. "We're celebrating," Jiwon announced, setting her Birkin bag on the side table where it cost more than the furniture. "I just closed the Jeju deal. 5 boutique hotels, prime beach locations, undervalued by at least 30%. Min-jae nodded his approval. "Well done." Champagne appeared. Staff moved like ghosts in this house, anticipating needs before they were spoken. Crystal flutes filled with golden bubbles that caught the afternoon light. Jiwon raised her glass. "To family, to legacy, to knowing your worth." They drank. Zara, seated beside Min-jae in her usual spot, took the smallest sip. She wore a navy dress, simple cut, probably from a mid-range department store. Her only jewelry was small gold earrings and a delicate necklace that Min-jae had given her for her birthday. Not expensive by his standards, but she'd cried when she opened it. She looked perfectly pleasant, perfectly appropriate, perfectly beneath notice. Jiwon finished her first glass, accepted a second, and turned her attention to Zara with the precision of a surgeon selecting an incision site. "You must be so overwhelmed by all this." Zara looked up, polite confusion on her face. "I'm sorry?" "This." Jiwon gestured vaguely at the room, the compound, the empire. "I mean, where you're from, is this kind of wealth even comprehensible?" The room temperature dropped 5 degrees. Min-jae's jaw tightened, but he didn't speak. Not yet.
He'd learned to let Jiwon's storms blow themselves out. Zara smiled softly. "It's very beautiful. Your family has excellent taste. It's okay to be honest." Jiwon continued, emboldened by champagne and audience. Her husband was watching nervously. Mrs. Shin, the head of household staff, had frozen near the doorway. "We understand why you're here." "Juana." Min-jae's voice was quiet, dangerously quiet. But Juwon was drunk on her own cruelty now. 8 months of resentment uncorked and fizzing. "Appa, I'm not judging. She's pretty. She's exotic. Men have phases. But at some point, we have to be realistic." She turned back to Zara, false sympathy dripping from her words. "Does she even have a retirement account? Or is you her retirement account?" Nervous laughter from her husband. Staff kept their eyes down. Min-jae stood, hands flat on the table. "Stop. Now. I'm protecting you." Jiwon's voice rose, righteous and ridiculous. "These African girls, they come here with nothing. They see wealthy Korean men as lottery tickets, as escape routes. Jiwon, see?" Zara's voice cut through the tirade like silk over steel. She carefully set down her chopsticks. The small click against porcelain somehow louder than Jiwon shouting. Her hands were steady. Her face was calm. But something in her eyes had changed, like a curtain pulling back to reveal a window that had been painted shut. "I understand," Zara said quietly. "You're protective of your brother. That's admirable." Jiwon smirked, thinking she'd won. "But you're correct about one thing." Zara reached into her purse. A simple leather bag. Probably cost $200 at most. She pulled out a business card, pristine white with embossed lettering, and slid it across the table to Jiwon with 2 fingers.
I do have a retirement account. The card sat between them like a declaration of war. Several, actually. Min-jae stared at Zara, seeing a stranger wearing a familiar face.
Ji-won picked up the card, read it, confusion replacing her smirk. Goldman Sachs Singapore? That's my financial advisor, Zara explained, her voice still gentle, still calm, still devastating. His private line, "You're welcome to call him Monday morning and verify my portfolio. I believe last quarter's statement showed $197 million in liquid assets, not counting real estate holdings across 3 continents, or my family's mining operations in West Africa." The room forgot how to breathe. "So when you call me a gold digger, Jiwon-si, I want you to understand something very clearly." Zara smiled, and it was beautiful and terrible. "I'm not here for your family's money." She turned to look at Min-jae, and her eyes were soft again, vulnerable again, real again. "I have my own." Silence has weight. This silence was crushing. Ji-won's face had gone from flushed to pale, from righteous to trapped. She looked down at the business card like it might bite her, then back at Zara, then at Min-jae as if he could explain this, fix this, make reality rearrange itself into something manageable. "You're lying." Her voice was small now, uncertain. "This is fake." Zara tilted her head, considering. "Call the number. Monday, 9 a.m. Singapore time. Ask for Marcus Chen. Tell him Zara Okonkwo gave you his card." She took a sip of water, unhurried. "He'll verify everything. Account balances, asset allocation, investment portfolio performance. Or, if you prefer, I can have my attorney send documentation directly." Though I assumed, her pause was delicate, pointed. "We were family now. I didn't think you'd need proof." The word family landed like a blade between ribs. Min-jae was staring at Zara like she was a puzzle that had just revealed extra dimensions. His mind was racing through 8 months of memories, recontextualizing everything. The modest apartment, the subway rides, the careful budgeting, the money sent home each month. All of it. What? A performance? A test? Who was this woman? Near the door, Mrs. Shin had the slightest smile playing at her lips. Barely there, but present. She'd liked Zara from the beginning, had defended her to other staff when they whispered about the master dating that foreign girl. Mrs. Shin had served the Kang family for 30 years. She recognized quality when she saw it. She'd known something was different about this one. Ji-won's husband was suddenly fascinated by his phone, scrolling through nothing, desperately trying to disappear into technology. He'd laughed at his wife's cruelty 60 seconds ago. Now he understood he'd just witnessed her commit social suicide. And he'd been complicit. Min-jae's head of security, stationed near the entrance, had already pulled out his phone. Texting someone. Running emergency verification. Because if this was true, if Zara Okonkwo was who she claimed, then every background check they'd run had missed something massive. And in Min-jae's world, missing something massive got people killed. Zara,
Minjae's voice was controlled, but barely. Not angry. Worse than angry. Calculating. Assessing threat levels. Running scenarios. Zara. Minjae's voice was controlled, but barely. Not angry. Worse than angry. Calculating. Assessing threat levels. Running scenarios. We should talk. Privately. Zara looked at him, and for the first time since he'd known her, he saw something in her eyes he'd missed before. Not defiance. Not apology. Something older. Deeper. The look of someone who'd been patient for a very long time and had finally decided patience was finished. Of course, Jakia. The endearment sounded different now, weighted with meanings he couldn't parse. But first, she turned back to Jiwan, and her expression was grace itself. Merciful. Implacable. I believe you owe the staff an apology. Jiwan's mouth opened. Closed. What? You said those things in front of them. Zara gestured to Mrs. Shin, to the servers hovering near the kitchen entrance, to the security personnel who were pretending not to listen, but hearing everything.
They deserve to hear you take them back. Jiwan looked to Minjae for rescue. He said nothing. She looked to her husband. He was studying his phone like it held the secrets of the universe. She was alone. I'm sorry, Jiwan mumbled, staring at the table. Louder, please. Zara's voice remained gentle, unyielding. Mrs. Shin has worked for your family since you were 7 years old. She should hear you clearly. The air was electric with inverted power. Minjae found himself watching this transformation with something between awe and unease. This was not the woman who'd held his hand at art galleries, who'd cried at sad movies, who'd laughed at his terrible jokes. Or rather, it was her, but it was also someone else. Someone who'd been there all along, hidden beneath soft smiles and careful accommodation. Someone who knew exactly how to dismantle a person without raising her voice. Jiwan's hands were shaking. Tears started at the corners of her eyes, mascara threatening. I apologize, she said. Loud enough now, clear enough. I was wrong about you. I was cruel. I'm sorry. The words cost her. Zara nodded, gracious in victory. Thank you. That took courage. She stood, smoothing her navy dress, which everyone now realized was probably designer, just understated, just chosen carefully to seem less than it was. Everything about her had been calibrated, every choice deliberate. She extended her hand to Minjae. Shall we? He took it automatically, muscle memory overriding confusion. Her hand was warm, familiar, and completely unknown. He led her toward his private study, mind spinning through possibilities,
through implications, through the seismic realization that he'd been sleeping next to a mystery for 8 months. Behind them, Jiwan collapsed into her chair, her husband's hand on her shoulder, their champagne celebration, curdled into ash. Mrs. Shin caught Zara's eye as they passed. The older woman bowed, just slightly. Respect recognizing respect.
The study door closed behind them with a sound like a chapter ending. "Who are you?" Minjae asked. And Zara Okonkwo, worth $200 million and tired of pretending otherwise, decided it was finally time to tell the truth. Minjae's study was designed for intimidation. Dark wood paneling, leather chairs that cost more than cars, a desk the size of a small peninsula, meticulously organized, laptop, phone, 3 monitors displaying shipping routes, port operations, and encrypted communications. Behind him, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves held volumes he'd actually read: Korean history, philosophy, Sun Tzu in 3 different translations. No windows. He didn't like windows in rooms where secrets were discussed. Zara stood near the door, waiting. Not nervous, just waiting. Like she'd been preparing for this conversation for months and was almost relieved it had finally arrived. Minjae's phone buzzed. A message from Kyung-soo, his head of security. Running deep verification now. Initial results. Complicated. "Call me. Sit," Minjae said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. "I'd rather stand. Sit. Not a request this time." Zara sat. He studied her across the desk that had witnessed confessions, negotiations, threats, and executions ordered in calm voices. She met his gaze steadily. No fidgeting, no defensive posture. Just patience. "Explain," he said. "What would you like me to explain?" "Don't play games, Zara. Not now. Not after." He gestured vaguely toward the dining room, toward his humiliated sister, toward the bomb she'd just detonated in his family. "Who are you really?" She took a breath. "My name is Zara Okonkwo. That part is true. I'm 32 years old. I was born in Lagos, educated in London. I hold dual citizenship, Nigerian and British. I do love art. That's not a lie." Her voice was steady, facts delivered like a briefing. "My father is Chief Adewale Okonkwo. He controls 40% of coltan mining exports from Central Africa."
Minjae's expression didn't change, but his fingers tightened on the desk edge. Coltan, rare earth mineral, essential for smartphones, military technology, electric vehicles. Whoever controlled coltan controlled chunks of the global supply chain. "My family," Zara continued, "has connections to 3 presidential administrations, partnerships with Chinese conglomerates, and a reputation for absolute discretion in business dealings. I've been on Forbes' Africa's Richest Under 40 list for 6 years. The gallery work? Passion project. Hobby. The modest apartment? I own the building. The subway rides? I like subways. They're honest about what they are. The background checks? Found exactly what I wanted you to find. Surface life. Legal visa. Typical immigrant story. Nothing alarming." She leaned forward slightly. "Your people are good, Minjae, but they were looking at the wrong databases. They searched for criminal records, visa issues, debt problems. No one thought to check international wealth registries, African business networks, or mining industry publications. Why would they? I was just a gallery worker dating above her station." His phone buzzed again. Another message. "Confirmed. She's real. Bigger than we thought. Much bigger." A third message. "We have a problem. Busan shipment seized at Lagos port 30 minutes ago."
Either her family was sending a message, or... "It's not my uncle," Zara said, ending the call. Her hand was trembling slightly.
Someone used his port authority codes, forged his authorization. This is a message to both our families. Who? I don't know yet, but someone knew I was here. Someone knew we were together. Someone is watching both of us and decided to make their move now. Another buzz. This time, a call. Min-jae answered. Kyung-soo's voice, tense. Sir, we need to talk. It's about your sister. Min-jae's world tilted. What about her? Surveillance footage just flagged something. 3 weeks ago, she met with Lee Sang-hyun. Lee Sang-hyun, rival syndicate leader, currently trying to muscle into Kang's shipping territories. Dangerous, ambitious, and expensive to deal with. How long was the meeting? 40 minutes. Money changed hands. Silence stretched like wire about to snap. Zara was watching Min-jae's face, reading the micro-expressions that most people missed. She saw the moment he understood. The moment betrayal became real. Your sister, Zara said quietly. She sold you out. Min-jae stood, movements controlled but violent somehow. This isn't about you being insulted. This is about Ji-won positioning herself to take over. And someone else is exploiting the chaos. Zara stood too. The legal seizure. That's not your sister. She doesn't have those connections, but whoever she's working with might. Their eyes met across the desk. Two people who'd been hiding things from each other, suddenly forced into the same corner. We need to talk to Ji-won, Min-jae said. Together, he looked at her, really looked, seeing her clearly for the first time. Secret heiress, mining empire princess, woman who'd been playing a role for 8 months but had just revealed her hand to protect him from his own sister's ambitions. Together, he confirmed, what started as a dinner gone wrong was becoming an international incident.
And someone, somewhere, was watching it unfold with great interest. Before confronting Ji-won, before making calls to Busan and Lagos, before deploying countermeasures against whatever three-way power play was unfolding, Min-jae did something unexpected. He poured 2 glasses of whiskey, expensive whiskey, 25-year-old single malt that cost more per ounce than most people earned in a day. He handed one to Zara without asking if she wanted it. She took it. They sat in the leather chairs near the bookshelf, angled toward each other instead of across the confrontational desk. Min-jae rarely drank during business, but this wasn't business anymore. This was something else entirely. Tell me the real story, he said. Not the facts. The story. Zara held the glass in both hands, staring into amber liquid like it held answers. She was quiet for so long he thought she might not respond. Then, when I was 19, I fell in love. Her voice was different now, softer, younger somehow, like she was reaching back through years to touch a version of herself that still believed in simple things. British Nigerian boy, graduate student at LSE, studying development economics. Beautiful and broke, full of ideas about microfinance and education initiatives, all those naive dreams about changing the world through spreadsheets and good intentions. She smiled, but it was sad, distant. We were going to do it together, build something meaningful, be partners. Min-jae said nothing, just listened. Then my father announced a merger with a South African mining family. Strategic alliance, good business. I was the price. The whiskey trembled in her hands. Arranged marriage to a man twice my age who saw me as a trophy and an incubator for legitimate heirs. He had a mistress already. 2, actually. Didn't bother hiding them. Why would he? I was just the contract. She drank, wincing at the burn. I ran.
Got on a plane to Seoul with my graduate school acceptance letter and a promise to myself that no one would ever choose me for anything except who I actually am. Not my name, not my money, not my utility to their empires. Her eyes met his. For 3 years, I built a life here where I could be anonymous, where I could date someone who looked at me and saw a woman, not a dynasty. You were using me, not an accusation, just a statement. I was testing you, she corrected. And yes, at first, you were supposed to be a mistake I'd leave behind when I got tired of freedom. Rich Korean man, dangerous job, emotional unavailability. You were the opposite of marriage material. Safe because you were temporary. What changed? You did. Her voice cracked slightly. You remembered I hate cilantro. You held my hand during that terrible horror movie because you noticed I was scared even though I tried to hide it. You asked about my day and actually listened to the answer. She set down the whiskey, hand shaking now, and I thought, maybe this one is different. Maybe I can tell him the truth and he'll still see me. Just me. Not the fortune, not the connections, not what I can do for his empire. Just Zara. The study was silent, except for the hum of electronics and the distant sound of staff cleaning up dinner. Min-jae leaned back, closing his eyes. My father chose my mother because she came from a family with port access. Love wasn't discussed. Utility was destiny. His voice was flat, factual, hiding old wounds under scar tissue. When she got cancer, he kept her alive 6 months longer than humane because he hadn't finished setting up alternative supply chains through her family's connections. When she finally died, he remarried within a year. Politician's widow, useful connections. Zara watched him, understanding flowering. I swore I'd never be that. Min-jae continued.
Swore my relationships would be about more than strategic value, that I'd choose different than he did. He opened his eyes, looked at her. But here I am. The moment I learn you're worth 200 million, my mind immediately goes to synergies. Your father's mining operations, our shipping routes, the supply chain empire we could build together. That's not why I told you, I know. He leaned forward, elbows on knees, hands clasped. But it's where my mind went, because I'm his son. Because empires are built on utility, not love. Because I've been trained since childhood to see people as assets or liabilities. And which am I? He looked at her, really looked. Not as a boss evaluating an operative, not as a son calculating strategic marriages, but as a man seeing a woman who'd been brave enough to be vulnerable in a world that punished vulnerability. Before tonight, he said slowly, before the revelation, before knowing about your wealth or your father's empire or any of it, I already knew I wanted you to stay. Not for utility, not for what you could bring to my operations, but because you hum when you look at paintings like nothing else in the world matters. Because you argue about Joseon pottery with passion I've never felt about anything except survival. Because you make me laugh, and I didn't know I still could. Tears were sliding down Zara's face now, silent and unstoppable. We're both running from legacies, she whispered. Maybe we stop running, Min-jae said. Maybe we build something different, together. Not a merger, not a strategic alliance, just us. Two people who've been alone in crowds our whole lives, deciding to be alone together instead. She was reaching for him when his phone rang. Kyung-soo, emergency tone. Sir, we have a situation. You need to see this footage now. The moment shattered like glass. Min-jae met Zara's eyes. This isn't over. I know. We'll finish this conversation. Promise. Promise.
But first, they had a war to fight, and his sister's betrayal to confront. The security office was in the compound's basement, windowless and cold, lined with monitors showing every angle of the property, every entrance and exit, weeks of archived footage stored on servers that hummed like mechanical breathing. Kyung-soo had it queued up already. 3 weeks ago.
Maybe security protocols. Kyung-soo pulled up another file. The Lagos port seizure. Lee has West African connections through conflict diamond trade. If G1 gave him your Busan's shipment details and timing, he could have tipped off authorities to create chaos. Why? Min-jae's voice was quiet. Dangerous quiet. Why would she do this? Zara spoke, her voice gentle but certain. Because you changed. Because I made you change, and she saw that as weakness. Min-jae turned to her. You started going to art galleries, Zara continued, spending less time at port meetings, laughing at dinner instead of discussing strategy. You became more than your father's legacy. And to her, that was betrayal. She wants to take over, Kyung-soo added. Cousins have been talking about it for months. Our sources picked up chatter. Ji-won positioning herself as the stable option, the one who prioritizes family business over personal entanglements. Min-jae's phone buzzed. A different message, from a source he rarely heard from. The African girlfriend. She's been investigating your sister for 3 days. Thought you should know. He showed it to Zara. She had the grace to look embarrassed. I noticed something was off. Ji-won's husband asking weird questions about shipping schedules at the last dinner. My family's intelligence network picked up chatter about Kang family internal conflicts being exploited by Leaf Action. I was trying to protect you. By investigating my sister without telling me. Would you have believed me 3 days ago if I'd said your sister was selling you out? You barely trusted me with your real feelings. Fair point. Min-jae looked back at the frozen image on the screen. His sister. His blood, the girl he'd raised and protected, taking money from their enemy. Bring her here, he said to Kyung-soo. Now. Both of them. Ji-won and her husband. And Lee? Not yet. First, I deal with family.
15 minutes later, Ji-won walked into the security office, her husband trailing behind. She'd repaired her makeup, changed clothes, regained some composure. She thought she was being summoned for a private reconciliation about the dinner disaster. She saw the screen, her face drained of color. Appa, don't. Min-jae's voice could have cut diamonds. Don't say anything yet. Just watch. He played the footage. All 43 minutes. The envelope. The payment. When it finished, the silence was absolute. I can explain. Ji-won started, voice shaking. You sold our shipment information to Lee Sang-hyun. It's on video. It's time-stamped. Your account received $50,000 3 days later. Min-jae stood. And despite being siblings, despite her being family, Ji-won instinctively stepped back from the cold fury radiating from him. My question isn't whether you did it. My question is why. Ji-won's composure cracked. Because you've changed. Because she, pointing at Zara, venom returning, has made you weak. You spend time at galleries instead of board meetings. You laugh now. You're distracted. You're not father. You're not who we need to run this empire. Father died alone, Min-jae said quietly. Hated by his wife. Feared by his children. Respected by no one who actually knew him. If that's your aspiration, you're welcome to it. But not in this family. I'm protecting this family. You're destroying it. He pulled out his phone, made a call. Uncle Kang, I need you at the compound. Bring the cousins. Family meeting. Now. 20 minutes later, the formal reception room was full. Uncle Kang, the politician, looking grave. 3 cousins from Busan operations. Extended family members who ran various business fronts. Mrs. Shin standing near the door, officially as staff, but really as witness to history. And Zara, standing beside Min-jae, not behind him.
beside him. Equal positioning.
Min-jae addressed the room. My sister has been selling operational information to Lee Sang-hyun. The evidence is conclusive. The betrayal is complete. He let that sink in. Ji-won will be removed from all business operations, effective immediately. Her shares will be held in trust, her authority dissolved. She can keep her title, her lifestyle, her allowances, but she will never again have operational power in this family. Ji-won made a sound between a sob and a protest. Min-jae ignored it. He turned to Zara. My family has treated you with contempt and suspicion. Worse, my own sister tried to destroy our relationship to serve her ambitions. I can't undo that. He took her hand. Publicly. In front of everyone. But I can ask, will you stand with me while I rebuild what she's broken? The room held its breath. Zara looked at him. This man who had been hiding himself as carefully as she'd hidden herself. Both of them running from legacies. Both of them terrified of being loved for the wrong reasons. I stand with you, she said clearly. But not as silent partner. Not as accessory. As equal. Uncle Kang cleared his throat. What exactly does that mean? Zara addressed the room directly. My father arrives tomorrow from Lagos. He's been wanting to meet the man who made his daughter happy enough to stay in Korea for 3 years. I think now is the time for that meeting. The implications were massive. Official alliance between Okonkwo mining operations and Kang shipping networks. A supply chain empire spanning 3 continents. The cousins were already calculating. Uncle Kang's political mind was spinning through advantages. And Ji-won, standing alone now, even her husband having stepped away, understood fully. She'd tried to remove Min-jae's weakness. Instead, she'd revealed his greatest strength. The family meeting continued for another hour, logistics and damage control, but the essential truth was settled. Power had shifted. Min-jae and Zara retired to his study again, this time joined by Kyung-soo, Uncle Kang, and someone new, Chidi Okafor, who'd arrived on a late flight from Lagos. Chidi was 6'4" of quiet menace, former Nigerian Special Forces, now head of security for Okonkwo family interests. He moved like violence contained in expensive suits, and when he shook Min-jae's hand, it was between equals recognizing equals. Chief Okonkwo sends his regards, Chidi said in English, with a British boarding school accent that contrasted beautifully with his physical presence. He's disappointed he couldn't meet you under better circumstances. The circumstances, Zara interjected, are about to improve. But first, we deal with Lee Sang-hyun. She pulled up a file on her laptop. My family's intelligence network has been tracking Lee for 6 months. He tried to use our ports for conflict diamond smuggling without permission. We documented everything. The screen showed shipping manifests, bank transfers, photographs of Lee meeting with known militia leaders in Central African Republic. Evidence of sanctions violations, money laundering, trafficking through rebel-controlled territories. Interpol would love this, Uncle Kang said quietly. They will have it, Zara confirmed. But not yet. First, we use it. Min-jae leaned back, understanding dawning. He's meeting with our 3 largest clients Wednesday, trying to flip them while the family appears weak. Correct, Zara said. So we get there first. The strategy emerged through collaboration. Tuesday morning. Drop the Interpol information to select journalists. Reuters, Korean Business Press, international shipping industry publications. Not a dump, but a strategic leak. Lee's reputation becomes toxic overnight. Tuesday afternoon. Min Jae and Zara personally visit each wavering client. New proposal. Same rates, but with guaranteed access to rare earth minerals from Okonko operations at 15% below market rate.
Massive value add that Lee can't match. Tuesday evening, Uncle Kang leverages political connections to have Lee's export licenses randomly audited, freezing his operations during investigation. By Wednesday, Lee's meeting would be irrelevant. 36 hours, Kyung-soo summarized. Can we coordinate everything? We can, Chidi said. Okonkwo family resources are at your disposal, Min Jae-si. My team, our intelligence network, our political connections across 3 continents. Min Jae looked at Zara. This makes us partners. Officially. Publicly. Your family's reputation becomes tied to mine. I know. If this goes wrong, it won't. She was calm, certain. Because we're not fighting this separately anymore. Your resources plus mine. Your network plus my family's. Lee doesn't stand a chance. Uncle Kang nodded slowly. This could work. More than work. This could expand Kang operations into markets we've never accessed. That's the point, Zara said. We're not just defending territory. We're growing it. Together. Min Jae stood, extended his hand to Chidi. Tell your chief we have an alliance. Better you tell him yourself tomorrow, Chidi replied, shaking. He's looking forward to meeting his future son-in-law. The room went quiet. Zara looked at Min Jae, eyebrow raised. He had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. We should probably discuss that. Later. Much later, she agreed, smiling. First, we have a war to win. When Tuesday morning arrived, Seoul's underworld had no idea the tectonic plates were shifting, but they were about to find out. Tuesday, 6 a.m. The Reuters article dropped like a bomb in the digital space. Shipping magnate Lee Sang-hen linked to conflict diamond networks. Investigation reveals sanctions violations. The article was professional, sourced, devastating. Photos of Lee at meetings with sanctioned individuals. Shipping manifest showing illegal cargo routed through rebel-controlled territories.
Bank transfers, connecting his legitimate businesses to very illegitimate activities. By 7 a.m., it was trending on Korean business news. By 8 a.m., Lee's phone was exploding with cancellations. By 9 a.m., 3 government agencies had announced routine audits of his operations. Lee Sang-hyun woke up Tuesday morning as a rising power in Seoul's shipping world. By breakfast, he was radioactive.
As a rising power in Seoul's shipping world. My breakfast, he was radioactive.
Through what mechanism? Okonkwo Kang joint venture, formalized this week. My father arrives this afternoon to sign paperwork. She smiled. Official alliance between our families. Full integration of supply chains. Park was calculating, looking between them, understanding shifting. This is real? Not just... Call Goldman Sachs Singapore, Zara said, sliding him the same business card she'd given G1. Verify my assets, my family's holdings, our capacity to deliver. But this offer expires at 5 p.m. today. Park reached for his phone. By 11 a.m., he
he'd signed. Tuesday, 1:45 p.m. Mrs. Cho was harder. 63 years old, shipping magnate in her own right, had built her empire through ruthless pragmatism and trusting no one. She'd been with Kang family for 20 years, but 20 years of history meant nothing against profit. She received them in her office on the 40th floor. City sprawling below, power radiating from every piece of furniture. "I've seen the news," she said before they sat. "Impressive timing." "Coincidence," Min-jae said blandly. Mrs. Cho smiled, shark-like. "I don't believe in coincidences. You destroyed Lee overnight. Congratulations. But everyone has scandals. Mine is, I care about reliability and profit. Lee was offering 15% reduction. Can you match that?" "No," Min-jae said. Mrs. Cho raised an eyebrow. "But I can offer you something better than cheap rates," Min-jae continued. "I can offer you certainty. Lee's West African routes? They're about to close. According to..." Zara spoke. "According to my family, who controls the ports he's using. We're closing them to this network, effective midnight tonight. His sanctions violations aren't just reputational, they're operational. Every shipment he's routing through West Africa will be seized. His clients will lose cargo, money, time." She leaned forward. "You stay with Lee, you get cheap rates until his infrastructure collapses, which will be about 30 days from now.
Then you're scrambling for new partnerships while your clients sue you for failed deliveries." Mrs. Cho studied Zara like she was a chess piece that had suddenly moved in an unexpected direction. "Or," Zara continued, "you stay with Kang family, accept our new enhanced offering, and gain access to supply chains Lee can't touch, rare earth minerals, guaranteed delivery schedules, political protections across 3 continents. This is the Okonkwo girl," Mrs. Cho said to Min-jae, "the one your sister called a gold digger on Sunday." "This is Zara Okonkwo," Min-jae corrected, "worth $200 million, daughter of Chief Adewale Okonkwo, my partner in business and life, and the woman who's about to make you very rich if you're smart enough to sign." Mrs. Cho looked at Zara. "I always knew you weren't just a pretty face at those charity galas." "You were one of 3 people who bothered to actually talk to me at those events," Zara replied. "You asked about my art degree. You remembered my name. That matters." Mrs. Cho was quiet for a long moment. Then she buzzed her assistant. "Bring me the Kang contract, the new one." She signed by 3 p.m. Tuesday, 4:45 p.m. Mr. Lim, the 3rd client, signed before they even finished the pitch. He'd already decided after seeing the news and hearing rumors through industry channels that something massive was happening with Kang family. Getting ahead of the curve was good business. 3 for 3. Lee's Wednesday meeting was dead before it began. Tuesday, 6:15 p.m. Lee Sung-yeon showed up at Kang compound without invitation. Security tried to turn him away, but Min-jae made a decision. Let him in. Meeting in the formal reception room, full security detail present, Kang-soo and Chidi flanking the doors like twin threats. Lee stormed in, expensive suit rumpled, face red with fury and desperation. "You used that woman to destroy me. Her family's lies, planted evidence." Zara, standing beside Min-jae, cut him off.
Her voice was no longer gallery soft. It was steel forged in boardrooms and mining operations and 3 continents worth of hard business. "My family doesn't lie, Mr. Lee. We document." She stepped forward, and despite being smaller, despite wearing elegant heels and a designer dress, she radiated the kind of power that money and legacy granted. "The conflict diamonds you moved through Port Harcourt, February? We have shipping manifests, your signatures, your cargo. The militia payments you routed through Kinshasa? We have bank records, your accounts, your transaction IDs, your digital fingerprints all over money that funded atrocities." Lee's face went from red to pale. "We've been tracking you for 8 months, Zara continued, because you tried to use our ports for your dirty business without permission.
Did you think African infrastructure was lawless? That no one was watching? She smiled, and it was beautiful and merciless. We're always watching, Mr. Lee. And now, so is Interpol, so is the UN Sanctions Committee, so is the Korean National Police, who just received comprehensive anonymous tips about your domestic operations, complete with evidence packages that will take them months to investigate, but minutes to freeze your assets over. Lee turned to Min-jae, trapped animal looking for any exit. This is because I met with your sister. Business is business. You came after my family, Min-jae said quietly. She is my family. You do the math. Security escorted Lee out. He left smaller than he'd arrived, empire crumbling, future uncertain. In the doorway, he turned back once. This isn't over. Yes, Zara said. It is. Tuesday, 9 p.m. Uncle Kang found Min-jae in the study, pouring victory whiskey. The political fallout from destroying Lee, it will be significant. Some of his partners will retaliate. You'll have enemies I can't shield you from. Min-jae nodded, accepting it. I know. Was she worth it?
Min-jae looked through the doorway to where Zara was on her phone, coordinating her father's arrival tomorrow, speaking rapid Igbo mixed with English, laughing at something someone said. She's worth everything, he said. Uncle Kang smiled, clapped his nephew's shoulder, and left. Tuesday, 11:30 p.m. In the compound's garden, away from staff and security and the weight of empires, Min-jae found Zara standing under cherry trees that would bloom in spring. I don't know how to do this, he said. Build something real while running an empire built on shadows. Zara took his hand. We learn together. We make new rules. We use these empires, both of them, to build something better than what our fathers handed us. Is that possible? I don't know, she admitted, but I want to try, with you. He kissed her, and it tasted like tomorrow, like possibility, like two people deciding that love was the most radical choice they could make. The war was over. The empire was secured, but the real story was just beginning. 2 weeks passed like seasons. The compound felt different, lighter somehow, like someone had opened windows that had been painted shut for decades. Mrs. Shin mentioned to the kitchen staff that the master actually laughed during breakfast now, real laughter that reached his eyes, instead of the polite approximation he'd performed for years. Zara moved into the compound officially, but not as Min-jae's subordinate girlfriend tucked into his quarters. She took the West Wing, offices established next to his, her assistant coordinating with his, their schedules interlocking like puzzle pieces that had always been meant to fit together this way. Equal partners, equal everything. Chief Adewale Okonkwo visited for 3 days. He was a massive man, 6'3" and built like the former rugby player he was, with gentle eyes and a handshake that could crush stone if he chose.
He spent 2 hours interrogating Min-jae about intentions, family history, business practices, and life philosophy. At the end, he'd clapped Min-jae on the shoulder, hard enough to hurt, and said, "My daughter chose you. That's enough. But hurt her, and you'll discover diplomatic immunity doesn't cover everything." Min-jae had assured him that wouldn't be necessary. They'd signed the partnership papers in the compound's formal reception room. KO Global Supply Solutions, joint venture valued at $4.2 billion, combining rare earth mineral sourcing with global distribution logistics. Going legitimate, divesting from gray market operations, paying actual taxes, cooperating with international trade regulations. It cost them some associates, old-school operators who couldn't adapt, who saw legitimacy as weakness. But it gained them access to markets they could never touch before,
clients who'd been reluctant to work with that kind of operation. The family evolved. Uncle Kang thrived in his expanded political liaison role. Cousins received reassignments. Some flourished in the new structure. Others left with generous severance packages. Ji-won remained, technically, but in name only. Her shares held in trust. Her authority dissolved. Her husband divorcing her by the end of month 1. She attended family functions now with careful humility, slowly earning back trust one awkward dinner at a time. It would take years, maybe forever. But Min-jae believed in redemption. Not forgiveness, that was earned, but the possibility of redemption. That's what made him different from his father.
Oh, Kangkwo, there were rumors you initially concealed your identity when dating Mr. Kang. Any truth to that? Zara smiled, the same smile she'd given Ji-won that Sunday, gracious and devastating. Completely true. I wanted him to fall in love with me, not my portfolio. She looked at Min-jae, and her eyes were soft. Turns out he's just as stubborn as I am. He fell for both. Min-jae laughed, pulled her closer. Worth every second of confusion. Across the ballroom, Ji-won watched with her wineglass, attended by no one, reputation shredded but pride still intact enough to show up. She caught Zara's eye, bowed slightly. Zara nodded back. Not friendship yet. Maybe never. But acknowledgement. Respect for effort, if not outcome. Later that night. Rooftop garden. After the gala, after champagne and networking and performing civility for Seoul's elite, Min-jae took Zara to the compound's rooftop garden, where they'd first talked after the disastrous Sunday dinner, where everything had changed. He produced a ring. Custom-made, Nigerian sapphire the color of midnight oceans, set in Korean platinum, designed by a young artist they both admired, whose gallery show they'd attended on their third date. I don't know how to do this romantically, Min-jae said, and his voice was rough with emotion he'd spent 38 years learning to hide. I only know how to do this, honestly. Zara was already crying. You saved me from becoming my father. You made me believe empires can have hearts. You chose me when you could have chosen anyone, when you had every reason to walk away. He took her hand. Will you marry me? Equal partners. Equal everything. Build something new together that's better than what we inherited. Yes. Her voice was whisper loud, certain as gravity. But only if we honeymoon in Lagos. He laughed through his own tears. Deal.
They kissed under stars that had witnessed centuries of empires rising and falling. Two people deciding that love was the most powerful empire they could build. Below them, Seoul glittered. Across oceans, Lagos harbors pulsed with shipping routes that now connected two families, two continents, two ways of seeing the world. The screen would fade here, if this were a film, fade on them dancing alone on the rooftop, the city spreading below like a promise, two kingdoms becoming one, two people brave enough to be vulnerable in a world that punished vulnerability. They said she was a gold digger. They were right. She dug through the gold to find something real, and what she found was worth more than all the empires in the world. If you believe love is the most powerful empire you can build, hit that subscribe button right now. Don't just watch, join us. This is our empire, and you're building it with me. Comment where you're watching from. Lagos, Seoul, New York, London, some small town where nobody looks like you or understands your dreams. Doesn't matter. You're here. You're part of this story. Tell me what you want to hear next. The Nigerian doctor who became a Korean chaeble's secret weapon? The Ghanaian translator who knew all the secrets? The Kenyan chef who poisoned a Mafia boss's enemies and won his heart? Your stories, your dreams, your vindication. Let's go.